So in the first half of this episode, we discussed why Justin left medicine. And now we're just going to dive into what that's been like a year later.
So it's 1 year and now I think 1 week. So because I left at the end of the 6th quarter, and the 6th quarter has just ended for the new house officers, so it's been a year and a week. That time has really definitely flown. Definitely has flown, the 1 year. So I definitely remember before quitting wondering, what is my life going to look like a year from now? And I thought 1 year I will have had plenty of experience not being a doctor, and I will have been like real clear, things will have changed a lot. Honestly, a lot of that has not, it doesn't feel like it's been that much time.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm still just getting started with it in a way that, and if I really think about it, there has been a lot of changes. So in my situation, before I had quit, I was still running my business, but it was just after hours and, things like that. Now, obviously my life kind of revolves around it, and I'm full-time on it. And so I'm able to do a lot more. And if I think back on the last year, a lot of things that sort of the business has been able to achieve is because I've been able to just sink so much more time into it. So there's been a lot of good stuff from that point of view. Yeah. But from like a mentality point of view, surprisingly, it still feels like kind of fresh in that I've left sort of recently. It feels kind of like I left a few months ago. Like it's been 4 or 5 months is the kind of feeling that I have. I'm now used to not going into working at a hospital. At the same time, I feel like if I was in a hospital, I would be able to slip back into it very easily. And there are still times, like for example, when I'll go to the gym usually like after lunch. So I'm usually there around 2 p.m. I guess a dead time for a gym because people are at work. And so for me, going to the gym and in my car, or at the gym at like 2 o'clock, I sometimes still have that feeling like, what am I doing at the gym at like 2 o'clock? Like I should be at work,
Yeah.
So there's still these kind of thoughts that, which is kind of funny because I've now not been a doctor for almost, not quite, but just a few months short of how long I was a doctor for. And which is a little bit weird, but maybe I guess because I spent so many years in medical school and in clinical years as well. So it's definitely been super interesting. I think all the things that I thought would be the case were truly the case.
Okay.
So
give me some quick Mythbusters or confirmed.
So like I thought that I would find a lot more fulfillment on a deeper level with my work. Definitely. Okay, I thought that I would have I thought that there'll be closer alignment with my work, my behavior, my energy, and what I was producing. Yes. I thought that I would feel like kind of more connected with the impact I was making. Yes. Which interestingly actually shows me that for me personally, having ownership of that impact and feeling that connection was actually more important to me than necessarily the magnitude per se or the type of impact I was actually making.
Okay.
And actually there's some interesting research on this, which I won't go into as well, but there is that need for someone to not just be making an impact, but they actually need to consciously be able to connect to that impact for the positive effect of it to be there. Yeah. So that part was definitely true. I thought that my life would become a lot more flexible. That was definitely true. I mean, like, okay, look, I don't want to make anyone jealous, but if I don't want to wake up early, I just don't wake up early. If I want to take a break, I'll just take a break. Like if the other side is that if I haven't worked hard enough, I don't get to take a break because my income is directly tied to my effort in a way. So there's obviously pros and cons. For me, like I've never really shied away from hard work, and most people in medicine, honestly, are just hard workers. They don't shy away from hard work. They may not want more of it, but if they know that that's what's required, usually medical people are just willing to just get their hands dirty and get it done. And so yes, the hard work is still there. It's arguably harder in a way because my total hours of work are definitely more than I was doing as a doctor. I definitely take less breaks, so I usually only take 1 or 2 days off per month. But having said that, I get to take breaks kind of whenever my day starts and ends, whenever. So it almost doesn't feel as bad.
You have a lot of control over your schedule, so you can just sort of slot things in when you feel like it.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you miss?
Yeah, definitely. So what I miss
I actually wasn't expecting you to say that, to be honed.
Yeah.
I thought you'd be like,
He said
no.
that with like a
I made
melancholy
the
in his
right
voice.
decision.
Yeah, definitely.
and by yes, I mean no.
No.
No. So no,
I know people will get that.
if you don't get that, you're not following my social
Follow
media.
Dr. Justin's son. Oh,
Oh, thanks for the plug, Neil.
that's all right, man. Plug number 3.
By far, the thing that I miss the most is this the peers and the colleagues that I was working with, because medicine is such a team interprofessional role.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes that interdisciplinary role, that team can be kind of annoying, but there is just a lot of, what I would call kind of passive interaction that occurs in a lot of workplace life. So for example, when you eat lunch, or when even on a night shift, when you're, or an evening long day, where you go get dinner, even if you're going dinner and getting it back and you're working, or if you've got a busy ED shift in the emergency department, and you're just buying lunch and you're storing it there and you're quickly seeing a patient and you're scoffing it down, you have you've got a student with you, or you've got your senior, or there's something like that, or the nurse. There's some kind of that passive interaction that you don't really appreciate, but it does still do something. So the difference, right, for me is that I can go weeks without seeing anyone.
Yeah.
Right? There will be days where I just don't speak because I don't need to.
Right. Yeah.
So it's,
and at those moments, I think you'd almost prefer those annoying interdisciplinary interactions, rather than just pure Tom Hanks, Estranged on, was it Castaway? That movie?
Yeah,
He's got the soccer ball in his
with
hand.
Wilson
With Wilson.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it really feels like that. And then when I make fire, I'm like, finally.
Don't leave me, Wilson.
Those are the pigeons outside the office. That's my Wilson.
Yeah, Rick, Larry, and John.
So in my office, there's these. I've got one window in this basement office.
Yeah,
when I say it like that, it sounds really bad, but it's really not that bad. I find it's quite cozy.
Well, it is actually just the only window in this entire place.
But objectively, it's true. Yeah. And outside that window, there live some pigeons, and they're the same pigeons. They're really cute. I like them.
Disclaimer, Justin's not a psychopath.
In fact, it's actually a family of pigeons. I actually saw them lay their eggs. They've got a little nest in the corner. I saw them lay their eggs. I saw the eggs hatch. I saw the baby pigeons come out.
Quite involved.
Yeah, I saw the the handover from the
handover.
From the night
now we're
shift.
making connections over here.
There was a night shift pigeon that was brooding on the eggs, and then they had the handover, and then the other one hopped on, and the other one flew away. So I witnessed some interesting I've learned a lot about pigeons, actually.
Digress.
Anyway.
So the people aspect is something that I definitely do miss.
That's
I
clear.
don't miss the patient interaction side as much, and I think that's because for me the patient interaction represents kind of the sort of object of influence that I'm kind of influencing on, and so that part isn't removed because I'm still able to have that interaction with students and parents and clients and other professionals and businesses that I talk to. So I still have that kind of interaction, but I don't have as much interaction in terms of having a big team where we're constantly feeding through, and that level of sort of, in a way, this is kind of ironic, is that a medical team, the team itself, is a pretty efficient machine, the team. Unfortunately, the product of that efficiency is that it offsets the inefficiency of the system.
Okay.
So
Nick Gaines.
that's the thing. That's the thing that bothered me. But the idea that you have all these really high functioning, super intelligent people, most of the people that you meet, like other doctors and the interdisciplinary staff, they're more experienced than you. They know their stuff better. And you get to be a part of that, and you get to kind of help all of that run. That aspect is super, super cool.
It's exhilarating. Sometimes.
And I think that that's the type of interaction that you don't find in many other careers, where there's high stakes, high stress, high emotional investment and that sort of stuff. And you get this extremely highly specialized team involvement where everyone has such a specific defined role. I feel like I'm describing an online game. or go raid a dungeon. But it's that kind of feeling where like everyone knows their role and they're good at it most of the time.
Whereas like for you now, most of your days revolve around you just like teaching people everything you know. Kind of.
Well, no, actually, it's different. Like in a way that I have a lot of the roles.
Yeah.
So my days are actually very diverse in what I do. And for example, like I spent the last sort of 3 to 4 days where 80% of my time was spent on just learning. And that's something that I couldn't really do when I was a doctor. Yeah. So I have diversity. It's just that I don't have interpersonal diversity.
And I want to touch back to something that you said before about like that like making the connection between what was it? The efforts that you put in and then actually seeing the results. It's that specific connection itself, because I feel like you're probably able to see that connection or make that connection a lot more strongly than you were probably as a PGY 1 or 2 house officer.
Definitely.
I think that's sort of built into the way things are meant to work as a team. You're not meant to feel that that personal connection to the patient. As it's weird when I put into a sentence like this, but I think
it's the team effect that you get.
Though. Yeah. Because it's the team effect.
Like for example, if you've done a lot of volunteering, anyone that's listening, if you've done a lot of volunteering, then you will either feel like, hey, I was really helpful, or you might resonate more with the idea of, oh, I'm like useless, I can't do anything. I did volunteering when I was in high school. I definitely felt that way. Like, I can't do anything. Right now, nothing really meaningful. And so, like when you're working as a doctor, that's like you get to kind of do something. You get to be helpful. You get to be in that team and have that kind of thing.
And everyone has such a specific role as well.
Right.
Whereas, like you said, so now you have like a lot of the roles. Like it's just you and you.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not saying that.
Like, who should I ask? Oh, me.
I think I'm also saying that I don't think we should be searching to make that connection for ourselves. Like, oh yeah, this is now better because of me. Oh, like it's like that self-glorification process, which I think we need a bit less of sometimes. We can be a bit more humble sometimes and just see that, it's fine to have a smaller part in this big grand scheme of things over here. Where I think this is purely from a personal experience that I had actually yesterday on Friday, where in the morning I was just clerking. Fourth year medical students probably have the most time, well, just students in general have most time with the patients.
So clerking. Okay, yeah. So weirdly, it's spelled clerking, but I think it's pronounced clerking.
Clerking, yeah.
I never really understood that. I don't know if it's a UK US thing.
It's UK.
Hey, if you're listening and you're from the US, can you please leave a comment or something about this term, because it's everywhere. You will know it if you're a medical student, but this process of clerking or clerking is when you see a new patient and you work them up. By work up, I mean you're taking a history, you're doing an examination, you collect the information and you write it all up, and then you usually present that to a senior member who looks over it. So it's one of the critical pieces of clinical education, is this idea that you get to see this new patient, you work them up, you get the initial information, and it's that really doctory feeling diagnostic process. Yeah.
So clerking, with that itself, I feel like that's something where I feel like I have a true connection with the patient and stuff. Maybe not improving their prognosis like medically or anything like that, but the connection-wise, having a conversation with them. I had a beautiful conversation with 2 old patients. I don't know if you've seen the setting of a ward itself, how they face each other. I'm not talking to you guys have seen that, but some of our other viewers and stuff. Some of the beds face each other if the curtains are drawn back, and patients have conversations with each other. Sometimes they swear at each other as well, because I've seen both cases happening.
Some rooms have banter.
Yeah, sure. It was beautiful to see. Like 2 guys, 74, 72 years old, come in, both, this is in the cardiology ward, and like one of them gets off his bed and then just like sitting at the end of the bed of the other guy, and he's just like cracking jokes, and I come in, I'm like, hey, can I, I'm a 4th year medical student, can I ask some questions, please? And I'm just like, actually, I don't want to interrupt what you have going on here. It's beautiful. And so when you were saying like you can't find that sort of connection with the patients and stuff sometimes, I feel it's sad that like that's how it's sort of built, and like
it is. I do think so. Yeah. And that type of connection is possible, but it just takes a lot of effort to create it, and to it's not that it's
probably
not
part
there.
Of personalities as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that, in busy runs, you don't have time to really spend that much time with patients.
Yeah.
You are on a time crunch, and
That's
you know
true.
that there's an opportunity cost, and the opportunity cost are necessities that need to be done. Whereas this is almost seen as, it's like one of the best things that you can do for a patient is to sit there and connect with them and talk to them and have that interaction. And everyone really enjoys it.
Yeah.
Number one, you get so emotionally burnt out that you stop enjoying it eventually, which is, even sadder. But
And that's something that I'm so scared of happening to.
Which
me.
happens to a lot of people, and like it
Yeah.
is sort of sad, and that's how the system is built. But the other thing is that because of the sort of not a necessity of the medical care, it becomes something that does become sort of optional. And when you're already bursting with the necessities, that stuff often takes a back burner. But it is possible to retain that. I do know doctors that do still have that. I think a lot of consultants regain that in their practice because consultants are often not as kind of just rushed with the daily execution tasks as a house officer or a registrar
They
might
spend time thinking and using everything
Yeah.
that they've built up over like a decade or more.
be. Yeah.
And that's what James was mentioning as well. He said like, of why he moved into clinical psychology was because you had to like search for those moments, is what he was saying. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
And it takes effort
appreciate
to
it while you
search.
can.
And, the effort is, you could say, well, why don't you just, look for it more? It's like,
It's like, they're alive.
hey, you, like stranger telling me, like, why don't you look for it more? Hey, why don't you look for more meaning in your life, huh? Like, what? The point is that, like, yeah, it takes effort, but effort has to come from somewhere. And when you're spending all your effort doing other things,
Menial tasks
it's just harder to do it. It's not impossible, but it's like, it does make it harder. And that's day in, day out. And yes, yeah, like you're a doctor, you should. And yes, but it's hard and it's really tiring. And like, I can tell you that there are times where I just, like, I got to the point where like, I'm just walking through the hospital and I'm just like the Walking Dead right now. Like day 12 of, a big stretch or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I don't care about anything. I literally don't care about anything other than being unconscious. And even that, I just remotely care about it. And when you're in that state, it's just, not a sustainable kind of way to find value and meaning in a job, to be in that state and be like, oh, now let's like look for that purpose and fulfillment. And yes, I get it that there are a lot of jobs where it gets hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have quite a lot of insight to a lot of other careers because I am involved in like the business space. It's just not the same. It's really not the same because when you're with a patient, you are being assessed. You are being, you make an impression with the patient, with your staff, with the nurses, and it is fast paced. And I can tell you for a fact, there are not many professions out there that are that fast paced. Sometimes, we're talking down to seconds.
Yeah.
Fast paced.
Yeah.
And
Especially surgical.
And it can be like that for hours. You can be in that mentality for, and for example, we say, hey, we start work at 7 or 7:30 or earlier, and people will say, yeah, I start work at, 7 or 7:30 as well. It's like, no, you get to work at 7:30. You start working at like 8. You spend the 30 minutes setting up your work desk, checking your emails, getting your coffee. It's not the same. Like we start round at 7.
Yeah.
Right? We get there at 6:30, 6:45. We prepare. The morning is the busiest. As soon as our foot enters the door, nurses are already getting us to do stuff for them. It's instantaneous, 100%, and you maintain that energy. Sometimes you don't get a break for several hours, and then you do that back to back to back to back. So
That sounds like what you're doing right now. A little bit.
It seems like there's always someone watching you, and there's always something to be done and stuff like that.
there's a standard
And I
that
feel-
has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It like the way I was describing it before is sort of like as a student itself, like there's something that you have to prove. There's a chip on your shoulder that, someone's grading you through all of this and stuff as well. And I'm not sure if you still have that feeling a year out of it or not, that feeling to prove something or not, but
It's more just a feeling to now. It's really just a feeling to prove something to myself.
Yeah.
And not like prove something to myself. It's to just make something like what I'm trying to like personally. This is really not applicable to many other people, I think.
sure.
Me personally, what I'm trying to do now is I have an idea about how I want to live. I'm trying to make that viable. Like I'm trying to make my work something that I can actually live off and from.
Yeah.
And so I'm not trying to prove really anything to anyone. Even more now, I actually care less. But I want to make it something that I can depend on, in the long term. So anyway, it's been an eventful year. Thanks everyone for listening if you have been so far. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Subcut. If you guys have any suggestions for content, please make sure you send it through.
You can get in touch and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or find us on our website at jttmed.com/subcut.
Subcut is a podcast brought to you by JTT. If you or anyone you know is interested in a career in medicine, make sure to get in touch and check us out at jttmed.com.